I want to quickly talk about something that's not talked about a lot. It's not a major thing, but it's still something people go through, but it's also a good pointer to where you're at. What I want to talk about is boredom. And don't get me wrong, we all can experience boredom, and we all will at some point. But in general, if you look at the planet, there's a lot of people that experience a lot of boredom easily. They're bored all the time, or a lot. Now that is a different thing. You know, all of us once in a while can be bored for, you know, that half hour or whatever. Maybe we're around people that just resonate with us or situation, or maybe, you know, sitting in a doctor's office or whatever. Sure, you can feel bored for a little bit. That's natural. What I'm talking about is a regular state of boredom. So a lot of people on the planet, I've seen in my whole life, are bored all the time. It's a real thing for people. So first of all, if you're bored, you're probably spoiled. Not that that matters, but just top of my head, that's what came to my head. Think about it. If you're spoiled, if you're bored, then you're pretty abundant, right? Boredom isn't suffering or worry. It's just you're under the delusion you have nothing to do and nothing's entertaining you. That's really what it is. Boredom means I'm not entertained. So that's a sign you're super abundant. You just don't realize it. So first of all, if you're bored, you're really lucky. I mean, you're not you don't have a lot of challenges like some people do. You know. Children in third world countries, you know, that are homeless and scrounging for food every day, they're not bored. They're never bored. So if you're bored, first of all, you're completely in a delusion or not realizing of just how abundant you are. So you're super abundant. You're super lucky. But besides that, if you're bored, that's a pointer to something. If you're bored, it means you're disconnected to a huge extent to this miraculous, fantastical wonderland we live in of life. You're disconnected, and it also means you're heavy into the mind. Because only the mind gets bored. Only the mind is always looking for what's next. Only a mind can sit here right now listening to the fantastical, amazing symphony of birds and incredible clouds, sun and trees, smells and sounds experienced. Only the mind is capable of sitting here in this moment in this kind of situation and be bored. Because how is this boring? Right? Someone eating a wonderful meal, incredibly prepared, and they're bored. Excuse me, you're having an unbelievable experience. You're tasting different things, different fruits and vegetables, or whatever it is you're eating. That in itself is such an amazing experience. Somebody listening to incredible music that they like, but they're bored. Hello? There's nothing to be bored on this planet. This life is a lot of things, but one thing it's not is boring. Never. I don't care what your situation is. Even if you are overspoiled, let's just go to the other route. You've never worked a day in your life. Your parents are the richest people on the planet. You're alone up in a castle. Let's just go to a ridiculous story. Okay, you're up. Life's still not boring. You're perceiving it as boring, but how is it boring? You're still waking up. You're still breathing. You're having interactions with people. You're having endless interactions with people. How is that boring? Your interactions with life, you know, dogs, puppies running up, birds chirping, you trip on your way to the bathroom. You know, there's things going on all the time. How is any of it boring? Life's not boring. So it doesn't matter what your situation is. Life is anything, you know. You can say life is a lot of things, but one thing it's absolutely not for anyone is boring. So if you're bored, it means you're up in the mind, and you're obviously disconnected from what is, from this wonderland, this holographic funhouse that's anything but boring. So being bored is, like I said, one of the biggest pointers, though. It's good in a sense if you can make use of it, if you want to. If you don't, you'll just keep living your life being bored. But you can use it as a pointer because it's pointing you, telling you that you're heavy in the mind, whether you realize it or not. Because, like I said, your natural state is not bored. It doesn't get bored. You can't get bored. That state, that soul source, whatever you want to call it, when you're in stillness, when you're just quiet, it doesn't get bored. Are you bored when you're asleep? No. Right? It's the active thought. It's the mind thinking things that thinks I'm bored because it wants something else. And in its wanting, it's ignoring all the amazing things happening around it in that moment and all day long. Lots of amazing things happen to you all day long. So, like I said, it's a pointer. It means you're heavy into the mind. So, connect. Go to stillness. Go to nature. Go get in things that don't bore you and enjoy them and fully experience them. And the more you connect, the less you'll be in the mind and the less you'll be disconnected from everything, so the less you'll be bored. Because when you're connected to everything, you can't be bored. You can't. It's impossible. When you're really connected, even someone who's prone to being bored, there will be still moments where they're not. And if you examine, so let's just say you're one of those people that are always bored all the time. But there are those few times you're not, right? So look at one of those times, whatever it is. So one of those times, whatever those few times that you don't get bored, whatever that is, maybe it's hanging out with your friends or it's dancing or whatever it is, let's look at that moment. So why aren't you bored in that moment? Why do all the other things bore you but not that one? It's because you're in that moment. It's because you're connected to that moment. That's it. That's the only difference. It's not what the activity is. It's not. Because that's all relative of what... It's because you're connected. You're in that moment. So it's when you're not in the now, when you're not connected to what's going on around you, when you're disconnected, that's when you're bored. When you're up in the mind and you're disconnected. So if you want to get out of that kind of thing, return to stillness. It'll take a long time. Because if you're heavy in the mind, that takes time. So it's not something you're just going to... But you can snap yourself out of the boredom state easy by just connecting. So if you feel bored, connect with something. Whatever works for you, whatever still you feel connected to, go do that. Or if it's a person, or it's a thing, or it's an activity, whatever it is. And the only last little note I'd say, but it's more just a kind of funny observation, is I find that people that are always saying, I'm bored, well, my response to them is, well, you know why? It's because you're boring. Right? For a group of people, and if somebody's bored, that person's adding nothing to the conversation. Absolutely not. Someone who's bored around people isn't adding anything. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes you're around people that don't resonate with you or whatever, and so you maybe find a little bored. That's different. But still, if you're generally not a bored person, you're probably still adding something to the conversation, even though it's not your cup of tea or whatever. And if it doesn't resonate with you, you'll just go do something else. But in general, if you're the kind of person that chooses to be doing something but still has to do it bored and wants to be around a group of people but is prone to being bored around them even though you asked to do it, like you see this all the time where groups of people are bored so they hang out with each other only because they're bored, which is ridiculous and it's insulting to each other when they do that. Don't hang out with each other because you're bored. Hang out with them because you like them. But you see people go out, so you see 5 to 6 people go all to the movies together because they're bored. And they're bored while they're together. They go to dinner and they're all bored. And they go to the movie and they're all bored. And they're bored while they're around each other. That's because you're boring. You're boring because you're up in the mind and you're not your real self in that sense. You're not shining your light. So in those situations, if you look at a group of people where everybody's laughing and and really connecting and it's lively and somebody's there the whole time who chose to be there and wants to be there and doesn't want to leave, but they're bored, that person's not adding anything because you're boring, that's why. Or I should say you're being boring. You're truly not boring, but you're being boring. You're in a state of being boring because you're up in the mind and you're disconnected. So, don't be bored. What's to be bored about? This planet is unbelievable. This existence is unbelievable. There's crazy stuff going on. Like I said, it's anything but boring. You can think it's a lot of things. You can think it's heaven. You can think it's hell. You can think whatever you want. But boring, it is not. So, please, don't be bored. Love and light.